Air Chief Marshal Major, Air Marshal Rajaram, Dr. Sunil, all the senior veterans here, my colleagues from the blue uniform, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. Did you all notice that when I said members of the media, thoda mera gala khush ho raha tha? I have a special connection of Bangalore, media and AP Singh. I hope I'm lucky this time. First of all, my heartfelt gratitude to the Air Force Association Karnataka chapter and to HAL for continuing this legacy lecture where we honor this legend, Air Chief Marshal Katre. Enough, I think whatever I had written down about him has already been spoken. All I can say is, it is the visionary like him and like many others who are seated in front of me, especially in the front benches. It's because of you all that we in the Air Force, the current people, are getting our direction, getting our motivation, and remaining steadfast towards the service of the nation and doing our job that is expected of us. A very big thank you to all of you for guiding us. My connection with late Air Chief Marshal Katre goes back to 1984. I actually remember the date when I met him. I met him only once in my lifetime, in his lifetime also, of course. That was on 21st of December 1984. I don't know, you people must be wondering how I remember that date, but some secret was let out in my introduction. I got commissioned on that day, and the reviewing officer was Air Chief Marshal Katre. And our 134 PC and the parallel course 75 GDOC happened to be the only courses that have been reviewed by Air Chief Marshal Katre. So, very proud moment today for me to stand here on occasion, when we are honoring that figure who actually gave me my wings, literally and figuratively both. Actually, you can say that was my birthday, I was born in the Air Force. I must especially thank Mr. Samir Katre for being here today. He's son of Air Chief Marshal Katre. He's come all the way, especially to be here, and he does it every year. Thank you very much, sir. We talked about Op Sindoor. I thought today that also, I saw that Sindoor topic had come when they were settling down the slides. So you know what I'm going to talk about. When just now there was somebody said that a lot of good work done and my name was being taken. I get a feeling as if I am that non-playing captain whose team does very well, but the accolades go to that captain. So I wish I was in the cockpit doing something actual, but I fought this war from an air-conditioned ops room or air-conditioned office. But yes, that is how life is. And I'll say I can't praise my team. I can't get words to praise them. They have done exceptionally well. And, I'm very, very proud of my team, the entire Indian Air Force. And one thing that really stood out in this was the way we fought. At the helm of the affair, my biggest worry, because we keep having those exercises, we keep trying our, exercising ourselves in op-like situation, but they are not operations, they are operations-like situations. And in those, having seen how things are done, my biggest worry was that will everybody come together? Or will there be, I will do this, no, sir, I will do this. One command is going one way, the other command is going other way. Air headquarters is trying to do something else, but the command headquarters wants to do something else. Somebody is saying, no, as per so-and-so book, this is my job and not his job. Who is he to tell me? None of this. Not even once did I have to sit down and try to solve things. Not even once. I think that's a blessing to have a force like that. And again, I say, I can only thank my predecessors who have trained us like that, to be like that. Whatever may be, when the time comes, we are all together. So I will today take some time in covering that Operation Sindoor, and this will be, from my perspective, what we did, and in the end, I will also cover some takeaways from it, whatever, what was responsible for success. Like I just now covered one part, but I will try and cover some points on that. And in case I find that I'm running ahead of time, then I'll cover something else. I'm not really prepared for that part. Now, of course, another point I just now wrote down. Air Marshal Rajaram said that, this hall is full because you are here. They all want to hear you. But, sir, I can see 50% are blues, and out of that, I think 80% are detailed to be here today. Having gone through their times, I understand everything. But all those who have been detailed, please listen. Okay, don't sleep. So we all know what happened, that unfortunate incident of Pahalgam, where so many people were killed. The nation had to respond. And all that is in open media, how we were trying to achieve some things diplomatically. At the same time, we had to give them a befitting reply. We had also said, it was made very clear that this time it should be an emphatic thing that we do. We must send the message across loud and clear to them. It should not be something just limited to launch pads and training areas. It should be, if the leadership, the terrorist leadership should be challenged. So we were all called in, and we discussed a few options. Then all the other agencies also joined in. And then we decided on those 9 targets. I don't know how clear it is here. From my angle, it's not looking very clear, the text part of it. Like you see, I can make it easier for you by the red dots that you see on the map were the 7 targets that were very close to the border and LC, and they were to be taken on by Army with their integral weapons. And those 2 blue dots, we've drawn them a little bigger. They were the 2 main headquarter buildings, that is Bahawalpur and Muridke, headquarter complexes, not buildings, that were to be taken on by Indian Air Force. So this was decided. Also, when I say taken on by Indian Air Force, that doesn't mean that only Indian Air Force was to work towards that. All of us were working together, including naval assets were involved in, their weapons were used in these areas. Their INT agencies were involved. And in the planning, we were all, the 3 services together, along with other agencies. So this plan was discussed. Even the escalation metrics were made and discussed as to where can it lead to, what can happen, and if this happens, what is going to be our response. So it was a nicely planned out effort, and the date was decided. It was the 6th and 7th night, date and time, and it was decided based on weather, based on what pattern we were seeing across the border of their movements and their actions. And we decided that time, and we decided that it will be in one go, we will address all 9 targets. And like I said, Air Force was targeting these to the border. So it was not that we could do something with small drones or weapons of small caliber. They were all nicely hardened structures. So we decided to go with long-range weapons to keep ourselves safe from their air defenses, but at the same time, accurate weapons to get the targets while not causing any other damage to the areas around. And special emphasis throughout has been that there should be minimum civilian casualties who are not involved with this. So, as far as Bahawalpur is concerned, this is how that complex looks on map. And if you look at it, there was when DMPI is basically our point of impact that we decide where we're going to hit. So there were some buildings where we had intelligence of their senior leadership staying, some buildings where their other people stay, and of course the main Marcus building where the congregations used to take place and all the training used to take place. So these points were decided, and I show you some of the pictures of what we achieved. Now, before and after the attack, of course, these are satellite pictures, and after the attack pictures are immediate pictures that we got. Whereas before the attack pictures are which have been built over a period of time. So you will find there is a clarity issue, and there is a different satellite which is giving you. So here, sorry. So here you can see the damage, which is of course not coming out very clear in this, but other pictures. Here, these two buildings, you can see the damage much clearly. Again, another big set of buildings, and you see the damage that is coming out. What I can show you here is there's hardly any collateral that you see. Of course, from that distance, it is not very easy to make out, but still all the adjacent buildings are fairly intact. The buildings that were targeted were based on intelligence. And this is the main building of theirs, where the weapons have gone in, and it's badly damaged. Now, one thing which was good this time was that not only did we have these satellite pictures, we also had a lot of input from the locals media, which was giving us the inside pictures, because these were areas which were open to public kind of areas also. So there were a lot of people who were going in and out. So on the net, we could get pictures like this and videos like this. This is the same building that I just showed you. If you look at the damage that has been caused inside. It's all on the open net available. So I've also picked up from there. So this target was about 100 kilometers away from the border. We did not have a way to send a BDA mission that far away. So the damage assessment has been done based on only the, or accuracy assessment has been done based on damage that we see on the pictures from the satellites and also what we got from the media. As far as Muridke is concerned, this is what it was, the LET headquarters. This is shifted. I think something is on that. These are the two main these circles should be here on this building and this building, and these two things circles are in this area. This again is their, if I can say, the senior leadership's residential area where they were staying. And these were their office building and their building where they used to get together to conduct their meetings. This is one of the videos that we have because this was within our range. So we could get this video from the weapon itself. If you notice here, somewhere here was the first impact of the previous weapon. And if you see the next one now, the video continues. You can see the smoke of the previous weapon somewhere here. And this weapon is for the main building, that big building that we see. That was the point of impact. And this is the damage that you see on the... They've sorted me out here, my team. So before attack, these were DMPI 3 and 4. And after the impact, it's not very clear. The display is not very clear, but I think the brightness of this big display is always an issue. So this is the DMPI, this is the bomb that you saw in that video before. And here, this whole picture has shifted. And this is the impact that we see on the main and one on the office building. Office building, you can see it's already decimated quite badly. Here you see just a pinprick. Let it be. It's just a pinprick here. But I want to bring out something here. You know, when we did Balakot, we had something similar. I have a slide on that. You see here, in Balakot also, we had similar, this pinpricks being seen from the satellite pictures. And here in this building also, we see a similar kind of impact point. And in Balakot, we could not get anything from inside, and it became a big issue trying to tell our own people, unfortunately our own people, as to what we have been able to achieve. We had intelligence of what has gone on inside. We had intelligence of, a human kind of intelligence, where we had very clear picture of inside in terms of there had been huge damage. There have been so many terrorists which have been neutralized. But we could not convince our own people that, look, we have achieved that. But this time, again, a thing like this would have given us the same problem. But we were lucky, and we got these videos on the open. This is the same building from inside. You see the amount of damage that it has created. Because all these penetration weapons, the sound is from that video. So they cause this kind of damage. From outside, you get a feeling as if it's just a small hole. So I'm very happy that this time we were able to, take care of that ghost of Balakot, that we were able to tell the world what we have achieved. Coming back to Sindoor, again, after this, what we did, we were able to, we were able to very clearly understand that we have achieved our objectives. Some similar damage was done all the other 7 targets of the army. We had the pictures very clear. We had the videos from here and there. We had our all intelligence reports. So when we were confident that we've been able to address what we wanted to address, a message was sent to their DGMO, through our DGMO, Director General Military Operations, that we don't mean to have anything to do with the military, in the sense our objective was only to strike the terrorist targets, to take the revenge of this, what they have done to us. And we have no military aspirations, no intent to attack any military targets. So we can call it off here. But they, unfortunately, did not agree. They said, no, we will take a call. आपने हमें मारा है, अब हम मारेंगे, फिर देखेंगे, फिर बात करेंगे. These are kind of words they spoke. So we continued to be cautious. We knew they will do something. So that 7th, 8th night, if I can call it, 8th, 9th night, those 2 nights we had a lot of loiter munitions, drones, small-scale weapons, some drones which were basically to saturate our systems at many of our airfields and many of the army installations that were spotted. Of course, that created a little bit of panic in the public around. The public around started spotting even low Earth orbit satellites and reporting them as drones. So the number of drones multiplied. Just imagine if there's a LEO satellite, let's say 4 or 5 of them, which are being spotted in one part of the city. For them, it will appear it is towards the east, and that chap reports, I see 4 towards my east, or very close to me towards this direction, or right over me, or something like that. And same thing is reported by 5 more people in the same city, from different corners, because it's like everybody reporting, I've got 1 sun in my area. And we keep adding and say, oh, there are so many suns over there today. So that is what happened that night, those 2 nights. So a lot of reports that we got were even these reports, and it was becoming very difficult to filter out. But our local commanders did exceptionally well. They were able to take charge of the situation And many of the actual ones were neutralized using our own anti-drone systems, using our own even anti-aircraft guns were used to neutralize some of those drones which came over us. And what happened was none of them, many of them were not weaponized, because when we realized that they were actually, either they were doing some kind of a survey, or they wanted to saturate our system so that we can open our air defenses, open up our radars, and they can get some lint from us. There were few of them which were weaponized, and our anti-drone systems really worked very well, and we were able to get rid of, we were able to survive those attacks without a single damage to our any of the installations. And in response, we also sent our loiter munitions to some of their radar targets or SAGW targets which were close to our bases, close to our border. And we did achieve some success in that. Some of them, of course, were sending videos back to us so we could get that, the result immediately. Some of them, of course, we had to wait for our satellite imagery to come in. So we did achieve some success in that, and we kept ourselves very calibrated. We did not want to escalate unnecessarily, because for us, the immediate, the Operation Sindoor, the objectives were to take care of terrorist camps and terrorist infrastructure, and that was taken care of. So here is one of the videos that we have of a radar being attacked by one of our loiter munitions. This is the control cabin, which is the which has been attacked. I've cut it short a bit because after this it goes into where the system can be seen, which system we are operating, which I want to not give out in open. Some of the pictures of other radars, Arifwala, here after the radar attack, you can see there are soot marks here. Again, not very clear to a layman, but the specialists, when they analyze these pictures, they tell us what exactly the damage has been, and it can be blown up in our own system. Similarly, Chunia radar, there's another radar head which has been burnt. So once this was over, we got an intelligence report on the ninth evening, I will say, that they are planning something big. And next 48 hours are very critical. And also, we also decided that if they attack any of our installations, military installations, we are going to reply with military, attacking their military installations, which matter to them. So since we already had our plans ready, this point was debated, and both the CNCs involved, the air headquarters people, and the other services, we had taken a call that since they are mostly attacking us by Air Force assets, and my Air Force bases are under threat, we should respond without waiting, in case this continues tonight also. And sure enough, this time we had their attack on our airfields with not only just loiter munitions, some of long-range weapons. Their aircraft tried to penetrate our defenses. Our air defense systems have done a wonderful job. The S-400 system, which we had recently bought, has been a game changer. The range of that system has really kept their aircraft away from their weapons like, those long-range glide bombs that they have. They have not been able to use any one of those because they have not been able to penetrate this system. And during our first night, sixth, seventh night, also air defense system had ensured that when they did their repost, their fighter aircraft was threatened. That time they had come with some of those long-range weapons which they were able to penetrate into our defenses in Balakot time, if you remember. Some of the army, some of the bombs had fallen very close to army area. But this time, since we were ready to use our long-range weapons of surface-to-air guided weapons, they were deterred. I think initially we found the build-up taking place, very massive build-up taking place. But once the first missile was fired from our side, from the ground, we certainly found that that dissipation of that buildup. Also, we have some kills that we have got from our SAGW systems, because every time you fire a weapon on a track, you do get a feedback as to whether it is to be treated as a kill or not, because till when is that blip remaining and where is your missile going. So that I will talk about a little later. So 9th, 10th night again, a large number of their attacks on most of our airfields. The airfields like Adampur, Srinagar, Avantipur, they took the brunt of it actually. And many other airfields. From north to south, they tried to penetrate various classes of drones, including weaponized. We were able to neutralize most of their weapons by either countermeasures, some of them by using our air-to-air guns, as well as SAGWs. Systems like Akash and all have taken down many of their loiter munitions which have come in, the weaponized ones. None of their aircraft could come anywhere near the boundaries of Akash and even MRSAM. All their aircraft were taken on by LRSAM because they were trying to stay away, but still they were within our ranges at times, and that is the opportunity targets that we got. As far as our offensive was concerned, so that night we held no hold bar, we didn't have any hold bar, and we decided that we will go attack at Pan front, we will stretch his resources, and the idea was once again not to attack one particular airfield and decimate that airfield. Idea was to give him that feeling or give him that indication that, look, we can attack you deep inside at will wherever we want to. So some of the places that were attacked, like this is a command and control center at their Noor Khan base. This is the after attack, and this is before attack. Rahim Yar Khan base. This is based on specific intelligence. We had taken a call that here we have to attack the airfield. So the airfield was attacked, and their building, the main building where their planning goes on, which is also used as a civil terminal building also at times. As far as Sukur airfield is concerned, we attacked their UAV hangar and a radar site. You have the visuals available here. This is the hangar which has been flattened, and this is the radar site which is before and after. Bulari, again, an AEWC hangar was attacked, and here we have very clear hint that there was an aircraft inside when this attack took place. Sargodha. We've grown up in our Air Force, dreaming about days like this. Someday we'll get a chance to go there. And so it just so happens that I got my chance just before I retired. So we attacked the airfield there because we had very hard hit on F-16s taking off from there, and the ones who were attacking us in Srinagar as well as in Adampur. So we took on the airfield there. Again, intentionally not taken on certain other installations in this airfield because of some kind of calculation by us that may lead to unnecessary escalation. And this is the last slide I have on this. That is Shahbaz, their Jacobabad airfield, one of them, again, a major airfield that was attacked. And here there's an F-16 hangar, which you can see here. And here, this is the photograph again from open source, from one of their earlier pictures of the same hangar. And here, that hangar, which is one half of the hangar is gone. And I'm sure there were some aircraft inside which have got damaged there. So if I can just sum it up, what we were able to get there at least 2 command and control centers in like Murid and Chaklala that I've shown you one of the pictures. At least 6 radars. Some of them big, some of them. If I can say, what were the reasons for success? One, which I can think of, is that there was political will I'm being very, very candid here, very open here, because I hear various versions of it. I think if I tell you something, people will have to believe, because I was there listening to everybody, attending every meeting. There was very clear political will, very clear directions which were given to us, and there were no kind of restrictions which were put on it. Many people have spoken somewhere. Unfortunately, everybody is speaking about it. कि कुछ ना कुछ मैं बोल दूंगा इस बारे में. So there have been talks about, was there any restriction? Were you kept constrained? If there were any constraints, they were self-made. We, the forces, decided what will be our rules of engagement. We, the forces, decided what will be the escalation ladder that we want to ride on. We decided how we want to control the escalation. So I want to make it very clear. There were no, I repeat, no restrictions on us. Full freedom was given to us to plan and execute. I must say that, that our attacks have been calibrated because we wanted to be mature about it. A little bit on that I'll come to later. There was synchronization between forces. All four of us, CDS, the three chiefs. I must say here that the post of CDS has made a difference there. He was there always to get us together, discuss things out, iron things out. Wherever required, we all used to go to the senior leadership and discuss things out. NSA played a very, very big role, in getting all the other agencies and forces together. So there were so many meetings conducted, and whenever there was any doubt as to what next step. And most of the things that we did was before this event started, the Op Sindoor started, because we wanted to threadbare discuss what are the eventualities, what are the possible outcomes, what should be our reaction, how we should react. So when the operations were going on, it was just on telephone, some calls telling them what we are doing. There were not much of discussion going on. Should we do this now? What do we do now? What do I do? No. I had the full freedom. And like I said, the way Air Headquarters team and the command headquarters, the way we worked together, it was actually a dream come true. That is Shahbaz, the Jacobabad airfield, one of them, again, a major airfield that was attacked. And here there's an F-16 hangar, which you can see here. And here, this is the photograph again from open source, from one of their earlier pictures of the same hangar. And here, that hangar, which is one half of the hangar is gone. And I'm sure there were some aircraft inside which have got damaged there. So if I can just sum it up, what we were able to get there at least 2 command and control centers in like Murid and Chaklala that I have shown you one of the pictures. At least 6 radars, some of them big, some of them small. 2 SAGW system that is in Lahore and Okara. Then of course runway at Sargodha and Rahimia Khan. 3 hangars that we attacked. One was of course Sukur, the UAV hangar, the Bholari hangar of AEWNC, and Jacobabad, the F-16 hangar. And we have indication of at least 1 AEWNC in that AEWC hangar, and a few F-16s which were under maintenance there. Apart from these, the SAGW systems, mostly from, I'm talking about fighter aircraft, are from S-400. We have at least 5 fighters confirmed kills and 1 large aircraft, which could be either an Elint aircraft or an AEWNC aircraft, which was taken on at a distance of about 300 kilometers. This is the actually largest ever recorded surface-to-air kill that we can talk about. And apart from, of course, this, there are a large number of UAVs, Bholari hangar of AEWNC, and Jacobabad, the F-16 hangar. And we have indication of at least 1 AEWNC in that AEWC hangar, and a few F-16s which were under maintenance there. Apart from these, the SAGW systems, mostly from, I'm talking about fighter aircraft are from S-400. We have at least 5 fighters confirmed kills and 1 large aircraft, which could be either an ELINT aircraft or an AWNC aircraft, which was taken on at a distance of about 300 kilometers. This is the actually largest ever recorded surface-to-air kill that we can talk about. And apart from, of course, this, there are a large number of UAVs, drones. There are some of their missiles which have fallen in our territory. We have recovered a lot of wreckage from these, which now is being studied so that we can make out what did they do, where were they launched from, what route did they follow, what kind of system do they have, whether they have, what I mean to say, what generation those systems belong to, what all features do they have. So that study is going on, and it is going on even in coordination with DRDO. If required, we will also take some other industries' help for that. So I can say that it was, more of the high-tech war which was fought. In about 88, 90 hours of war, we were able to achieve, so much of damage to the system that it was very clear in their mind that in this current situation, if they continue, they are going to continue paying for it more and more. So they have come forward and sent a message again through DGMO कि हम बात करना चाहते हैं, and which was accepted from our side. And when I say our side, it's not just the Air Force, it's the joint decision that was taken, and it was taken even at the highest level. Why was that accepted? There have been a lot of debates which are going on. I will touch about it a little during continuing my talk. So that actually brings me to the end of my slides. Now, I want to talk about something like, if I can say, what were the reasons for success? One, which I can think of, is that there was political will. I'm being very, very candid here, very open here, because I hear various versions of it. I think if I tell you something, people will have to believe, because I was there listening to everybody, attending every meeting. There was very clear political will, very clear directions which were given to us, and there were no kind of restrictions which were put on it. Many people have spoken somewhere. Unfortunately, everybody is speaking about it. कि कुछ ना कुछ मैं बोल दूंगा इस बारे में. So there have been talks about, was there any restriction? Were you kept constrained? If there were any constraints, they were self-made. We, the forces, decided what will be our rules of engagement. We, the forces, decided what will be the escalation ladder that we want to ride on. We decided how we want to control the escalation. So I want to make it very clear. There were no, I repeat, no restrictions on us. Full freedom was given to us to plan and execute. I must say that, that our attacks have been calibrated because we wanted to be mature about it. A little bit on that I'll come to later. There was synchronization between forces. All 4 of us, CDS, the 3 chiefs. I must say here that the post of CDS has made a difference there. He was there always to get us together, discuss things out, iron things out. Wherever required, we all used to go to the senior leadership and discuss things out. NSA played a very, very big role, in getting all the other agencies and forces together. So there were so many meetings conducted, and whenever there was any doubt as to what next step. And most of the things that we did was before this event started. The Ops Sindoor started, because we wanted to threadbare discuss what are the eventualities, what are the possible outcomes, what should be our reaction, how we should react. So when the operations were going on, it was just on telephone, some calls telling them what we are doing. There were not much of discussion going on, should we do this now, what do we do now, what do I do? No. I had the full freedom. And like I said, the way Air Headquarters team, and the command headquarters, the way we worked together, it was actually a dream come true. So when that, these things were going on, the routine generally is very disturbed during that time because you don't know when the meeting will come up. So I used to come home once a day, just quick change and go back and sit there. And I had made some arrangement to even sleep in my own office. So that evening, one day when I had, we had gone for a night meeting, then I had gone in overall. And I continued to be in that overall for next 48 hours. I never had time to come back home because there was something or the other happening. So I didn't want to leave my office or the company for even 1 minute. And when I came back after those 48 hours, after having gone through that, where we had taken a call that, okay, now we stop hostilities, there was so much of sense of satisfaction. And most of it was actually from the way my Air Force had, stood up together. That is what gave me more satisfaction than what we had achieved. The way we achieved gave me satisfaction. Now, like Dr. Sunil has brought out, we keep talking about indigenization. Why do we talk about so much of, having indigenous sources, having things within India? The kind of support that we got from all DPSUs, and of course, HAL becomes a very big part of that because maximum support comes from them. I must compliment them. My people came and told me that at one call, things were moved. Wherever we needed anything, the teams were there, and they had pre-positioned some teams in anticipation. They had brought up some serviceability in anticipation. So this is how the nation has to come together if we have to fight a war. So these are the reasons that I thought were for our success. Now, what are the takeaways? I think the biggest takeaway of this operation has been that primacy of air power has come to forefront once again. People have come to realize that air power is the first responder that any country has, and air power is one which can actually, react in a quick time, attack deep inside, and attack with precision to just achieve your objectives without any collateral. And that is one thing which is good, that everybody has realized that. I can see the change when we meet, amongst the three services, the way we discuss things now. Because when obviously, if I'm in blue, I will always talk about air power and air power and air power. But when it comes from a person in green uniform or a white uniform, you feel so nice that there is understanding that, it is intrinsic to all three services actually. Everybody needs this capability to be the first one. And I don't know when will we have a war where we'll be requiring to, straight away go in for a land attack or a naval attack. I think there will always be requirement to first soften them with air power, and that is what has been realized. And there was a worry in our mind that air power means you are going way above in the escalation ladder. Actually, it is wrong. This time we use only air power, and we've been able to start to stop the conflict in less than 4 days. So that is something which people have come to realize. I was in Riyadh, that Global Chiefs Conference. There is some conference which takes place before this air show in UK. So just about 2 weeks back, I was there, and they had this conference where most of the Western chiefs and their representatives were speaking. They had some topics basically based on this current situation in the world and the conflicts that are going on. Not even a word was spoken about our conflict. They just discussed Russia-Ukraine war or the Israel-Iran war or Hamas-Israel war. They talked a lot about how to deter war, how to avoid war. Not even one talk about how to terminate a war. So I feel this part is being forgotten there. The conflict termination is a very, very important part of any conflict. We can't afford to be continuously at war. We are meant to deter, I agree. If we can deter is nothing better than that. But if we are forced, if the war starts, whether it is, whose initiative, doesn't matter. We should be very clear that we have to reach a stage where we can terminate that, so that we can get on with our routine, get on with the progress of the nation. So that conflict termination criteria has been forgotten by people. I think when I was young, first thing that was taught to me, principles of war, selection and maintenance of aim. And people have just kept shifting their objectives and aims every now and then. People have got down to their egos in this world. And that is what is continuing, continuously driving the conflict which are going on. I think we set a very good example. Our objective was very clear. Our objective was to teach the terrorists a lesson that they will think twice before doing something, or they know what kind of price they can pay. And once we have achieved those objectives, we should look for all windows of opportunity to stop that, rather than just continue. We were actually on a song that night. I hear from so many people. I don't want to say that, but some people very close to me have said, "Aur marna tha." I'm telling you that. But can we continue to be at war? Why should we be at war when we can avoid it or we can stop it? That is my way of looking at it. I think nation has taken a very, very good decision. And we were a part of that decision, but it cannot be taken at our level. It has been taken at much higher level, but it was a good decision. Now we have to make sure that we remain steadfast, that should we need to again do something, we are not found wanting. But what to do, that call will be taken at much higher level. Another takeaway that I see from here is, we've been talking a lot about drones. All the recent conflicts, drones have come into forefront, and somehow I think we should not be drawing a wrong lesson. I'm worried about that part. Drones are very good means for many things, but I don't think just drones can win you war. You will require the bigger weapons, you will require long-range weapons, you will require the precision strike capability, because drones are more of a nuisance. Or for very short range, small targets, you can use those. Even there is a lot of, and that is what is continuing, continuously driving the conflict which are going on. I think we set a very good example. Our objective was very clear. Our objective was to teach the terrorists a lesson that they will think twice before doing something, or they know what kind of price they can pay. And once we have achieved those objectives, we should look for all windows of opportunity to stop that, rather than just continue. We were actually on a song that night. I hear from so many people. I don't want to say that, but some people very close to me have said, "Aur marna tha." I'm telling you that. But can we continue to be at war? Why should we be at war when we can avoid it or we can stop it? That is my way of looking at it. I think nation has taken a very, very good decision. And we were a part of that decision, but it cannot be taken at our level. It has been taken at much higher level, but it was a good decision. Now we have to make sure that we remain steadfast, that should we need to again do something, we are not found wanting. But what to do, that call will be taken at much higher level. Another takeaway that I see from here is, we've been talking a lot about drones. All the recent conflicts, drones have come into forefront, and somehow I think we should not be drawing a wrong lesson. I'm worried about that part. Drones very good means for many things. But I don't think just drones can win you war. You will require the bigger weapons, you will require long-range weapons, you will require the precision strike capability, because drones are more of a nuisance, or for very short-range, small targets, you can use those. Even there is a lot of talk about manned, unmanned. No, very soon the manned flights will be a thing of the past and all that. I don't see anything happening in foreseeable future. Man will remain in the loop. You may have a lot of AI coming in, machine learning coming in helping the man take a decision. You may have a lot of things automated. But as a decision maker, man has to remain in the loop. And ethically so also. Tomorrow you can't blame the machine for taking a wrong decision. I don't know which machine will march in the court martial. So I think we need to put in effort towards in all directions, not just in one. People see drone because of smaller systems, because of easy to, I think, get things together. People are grabbing onto it, including our some industry also. Of course, this is a good way, good platform for our startups to start from, but they should only use it as a stepping stone. They can't expect that just drones and everything else will just disappear or fade away. Indigenization I've already touched upon. I think indigenization is mandatory. We can't wish away. We have to make sure that we have in-house capability and capacity. I think capacity is very much important. We can't be storing things for, we can't predict how long the war is going to last. If we store items, they have life. We can't be just, storing and then throwing them away. So we have to have a very healthy mix of keeping certain items, available for immediate response, and manufacturing capability, building up, ramping up within that period to a stage where they can support our effort. So that is something which has to happen, for which everybody, all of us have to come together. I think I have spoken enough about it. So I will not delve more into this topic. I thought since I have some 10 minutes more, so and I have a mix of crowd here, a lot of people in uniform, a lot of people who are veterans, and of course there are some people from HAL and other people. So I'll cover certain points, which we. One point which is meant for actually veterans. It's come to my. I've realized that whenever somebody writes something about another service, that other service gets senti about it. And same thing is my own seniors message me. Dekh kya bol raha hai ye? Look, what has he written? I told you they will say like this. That kind of thing starts. So I personally feel. We've always been talking about domain specialization. Air Force has been it's been always been our call. Even when we talked about theatre commands, we said domain specialization should remain. So I feel as veterans also, let's write about our own domain more than others' domain, so that others don't feel hurt. And especially if somebody else has written, and then the comments start back and forth, it becomes very awkward. People think as ye to aapas mein ladte rehte hain type. It's actually not learn. It is discussion, but at times it crosses that healthy limit and that goes into an awkward situation. So this is the request I wanted to make to everybody who is writing, who is expressing opinion. You express opinion about people in blue or what is happening, what should be done. I think it will be always taken with good spirit. We are always looking for that opinion from you all. And it has been guiding us on many occasions. Sometimes maybe that opinion of yours has been taken, but we have not reacted to it. I'm sure there are cases like that, but then you have to take, give me that, this thing that now that I am in that chair, I know what is happening around me. I have to take some decisions there. I have to live with people around. So it's like, I've also heard, actually again I'm getting carried away, there is media here. No, I'll tell you, people have said about some other officer, no, look what he said here. Can't you tell him this? You should. I say, yes, sir, I will. And after 2 days, I meet the same person. He says, did you tell him in clear words or no? So once I had to give him an example. I said, sir, how many times have you been able to tell something in clear words to your wife? So in our case also, it is like marriage. We have to manage that relationship. So I have to send some subtle hints. I have to give some diplomatic kind of, statement here and there in front of that person to tell him that, look, you are stepping a little beyond. You should not be saying this. But when it comes to my own people, my own mentors, I think I can be very open about it. So that is what I am doing today. I am requesting that all of us in blue, let us write more about our own system than the others. And let's get our own house in order. I think that's the best way to move forward. And also, I have said it in one of the previous Veterans Conference or something, that get Veterans Day, this thing, that you are the ones who have chosen me. So please have confidence. That's all I can say. And I can promise you, from my team, people who are in uniform as of now, we will not let you down. We will try our best to our best. Okay. So please have confidence that we will do our job. I have few points that I'm covering now are actually meant for people in uniform, but I actually thought there will be more veterans here, so I'll just inform you all what we've been focusing on. But since there are people in blue and many of them, some of them may have heard me saying this earlier, but many of them may not have. Very important to keep the synergy and harmony within any force. We need to be together in one group, as one team. We can't be divided into various branches, sections, trades. We can't be doing that. We all have to go as one team, whether it's an AC somewhere, doing some technical job, or a chief of air staff doing some other job. Everybody has a role to play. And we all are a part of a big chain, you can say. So a chain, we are all links of that chain. And when we are under stress, the chain is loaded, it will break from the weakest link. So we need to make sure that all links are strong. Firstly, I should not be that weak link. I won't let the chain break. And secondly, I will not let anybody else become weak whom I can support. And that is how we should live and operate. Keep watching each other's back. Keep supporting each other. No loose talk about, somebody else. There can be bad apples in any kind of basket. There can be black sheep in any family. There can be the wrong person in any group. It is not that, चिड़िया वाला है तो ये ऐसा ही होगा, या नहीं वाला है तो ऐसे ही होगा, AEL वाला है तो ऐसे होगा, M वाला ऐसे होगा. There's nothing like that. We all come from the same society. Yes, a little bit of grooming changes us, the way we operate, but that is also required sometimes. But if you have a person who is not performing, if you have a person with whom you've had a not so good experience, you challenge that person. You counsel that person. Identify him, talk to him, him or her. But don't make a loose statement about a group. That really, brings down the morale. If I am, let's say I am a youngster in a squadron, and I'm putting in my 100% to do my job, and somebody makes a loose statement कि उस कौन के ऑफिसर्स ऐसे हैं या फिर ये ब्रांच वाले ऐसे हैं, I will not like it. So whenever you get a feeling that somebody else, एक तो ये भी है, हम लोग बने ही ऐसे होते हैं, घर में भी हमें ऐसे लगता है कि सारा काम मैं ही करता हूं, कोई दूसरा नहीं करता है. वैसे ही हम we think at work also कि the whole Air Force is only standing on my shoulders. I'm the only one working, everybody else is having a ball. Then we look around. But ऐसा नहीं है. They will be. Somebody is working at 80% efficiency, somebody is 85, somebody is gifted, somebody is not gifted. But is there a commitment there or not? If there's lack of commitment, lack of motivation, that is what we should build. Talent will build over a period of time. But support each other. If there is a need, get into each other's shoes to know how much they pinch. We started with our cohesion day for that reason. That know about each other's job, know about each other's domains, know about each other's working environment, what pressures are they working in. Once we do that, we will be better force. And like I said, what is being achieved is important, but how it is being achieved is more important. If you achieve something by, लगाई डंडा here and then and just passing your 1 year or 2 years of tenure, yes, you have achieved, but you've broken down that system. But if you achieve something, maybe 80% of what you could have achieved by the other method, but getting from within, people motivated to work, people doing the job on their own, willingly contributing, then that system will last forever. And maybe from 80%, it will go up to 90, 100% someday. That is more important, I feel. And that is what I've been telling these youngsters. So, I think my time is over. All I want to say is, let us all be good human beings first, a good citizen, a good member of the society. That is first requirement. Let's all contribute towards this society where we come from. Let's all pay back something. Then let's be good warriors, good soldiers. And then let's be good professionals. There is no point having good professionals who are not good soldiers or not good human beings or citizens. Thank you very much for your patient listening. Once again, thank you, sir, for inviting me here. Jai Hind.